Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Our group has chosen mushroom soup for this project. So today we will discuss about two things. The first one is, can the panelists detect the differences between both sample of mushroom soup, Campbell original and the Campbell white? The second one is, can the panelists be able to find the similarities between the reference sample, which is the original mushroom, and it's identical?
Assalamualaikum everyone, and hi, I'm Fatinaja, and I will explain the main objective for our test, which is constant reference dual trial. The main objective for this test is to determine whether the panelists could determine which coded sample of mushroom soup tested is different with the reference, which is R.
So now I will explain on materials and method. So the sample that we use is canned food, which is there are two types of different types of Campbell mushroom. The first one is cream of mushroom and the second one is wild mushroom. So the procedure starts with sticking the 3-digit coded number on the small container that will be used to put the sample. And then the sample are arranged on a serving tray according to the permutation number that was already prepared in the master sheet. Then the sample will fill with cream of mushroom and followed by wild mushroom. Each panelist will receive 3 small containers where 2 containers filled with cream of mushroom with one act as a reference and another one filled with wild mushroom in a small tray along with a pencil and a score sheet. So panelists need to read the instruction in the score sheet carefully prior to the evaluation. So after evaluate all the sample, panelists need to choose which mushroom soup is identical with the reference and write it in the score sheet.
As shown in the table and figure, 42 panelists correctly identified the difference between reference and sample B, where active panelists were unable to distinguish the difference between the sample. This circumstance arose because panelists were compelled to make decisions, thus they were required to choose between two samples and could not claim the ignorance of the answer. In other words, each panelist may have made a correct or incorrect choice, but they all must make a choice. Some individuals are able to discriminate and have a genuine taste preference, whereas others are unable to discriminate but choose nonetheless.
Based on manual calculation using my binomial distribution and table, the result from the Russell table, value for 60 panelists at 5% probability is 30% panelists must be correctly choose the correct answer. So, there is no significant difference between the samples. Next, based on H chi-square, the x squared calculated is 9.56, which is greater than x squared in the table. So, there is significant difference. Last but not least, from the z-test calculation, the proportional correct was 70% and the z calculated is 2.97. Thus, we reject the null hypothesis. As the conclusion, there is significant difference between the calculation, so the panelists could detect the difference between the sample.
After conducting a chi-square using Excel, the calculated chi-square value is 9.6, which is greater than tabulated chi-square. So it can be concluded that there is a significant difference between the samples. Hence, we reject the null hypothesis and conclude that panelists could significantly differentiate the sensory differences between these two samples, which are wild mushroom and cream of mushroom soup. From the result obtained, there is a significant difference between the two samples, which is Campbell cream of mushroom and wild mushroom, as the panelists could detect a difference between the sample. It is because the ingredient differences that contained in the mushroom are stated in their official website Campbell. So the different types of mushroom have different intensity of taste, since the mushroom are rich in umami and the mushroom that has darker appearance has higher content of umami. The ingredient differences makes the panelists can detect the differences between the two types of mushroom soup. For cream of mushroom, they only use one type of mushroom. Meanwhile, wild mushroom has 4 different types of mushroom used, such as champignon, Swiss brown, portobello, and shiitake. The use of multiple types of mushroom result in different intensity of this wild mushroom and cream of mushrooms. Other differences between the two types of mushroom is the use of butter in wild mushroom but spices in cream of mushroom. Hence, the number of total correct obtained in this test is 42 out of 60 panelists indicate that the null hypothesis is rejected and there is a significant difference at 95% confidence level. The panelists also could distinguish between the two samples of mushroom soup.
According to the result obtained from data collected and applied on the chi-square test, there is a significant difference between two samples of mushroom soup in the constant reference dual trial test, where the p-value less than alpha, which is 0.05. The total number of panelists who responded correctly, which is unmatched with the reference, is greater than expected value, which is 13 panelists from the chi-square test. In contrast, the total number of the panelists who responded incorrectly, which is just same sample with reference, is lower. Due to the numerous factors influencing the selections of panelists, we can conclude that each panelist reached the incorrect conclusion in certain circumstances. Each panelist may have made a correct or incorrect selection. In addition, there are numbers of external factors that may influence the selection of panelists, such as colors of ambient light, the colors of food, the product packaging, and the texture of food itself. However, when comparing our result to the older studies, it must be pointed out that the color and textures of mushroom fruit differences may influence the panelists' preference. The review studies by Gabres and friends indicated that the product characteristics like colors and textures of food can influence the panelists' preferences.
Discussion is the importance of finding. The dual trial test was developed by Pariam and Swartz in 1950, represented an alternative to the triangle test that for some was a complex test psychologically. The dual trial test was found to be so useful for products that has intent test, odor, and kinesthetic effect, such that may impact sensitivity. A dual trial test is an overall difference test which will determine whether a sensory differences exist between two samples. This method is particularly useful to determine whether product differences result from a change in ingredient, process and packaging or storage has give an impact to the consumer.
The mushroom soup used is from the same brand but use two different types of mushroom, wild mushroom and common mushroom that used as reference sample. Based on the calculation we have done, the calculated chi-square is 9.56, while x in the chi-square table is 3.841. In addition, based on Z-test calculation, the proportion correct is 70%, which more than half the number of panels that took the test. The Z count is 2.97, so we reject the null hypothesis. Both calculations show that there is a significant difference in the calculation. Therefore, we conclude that the panelists can detect difference between samples and determine which samples are similar to the reference sample.